My name is Matthew McDonald of the Fairhaven Village Militia. I am the Lieutenant Commander of this weekend's encampment commemorating the 251st First Naval Engagement of the American Revolutionary War off the coast of Fairhaven in the waters of Buzzards Bay. I've been reenacting for about 14 and a half years. I fell in love with it due to the love of American history. I was a young lad at my mother's house here in town. I grew up in Fairhaven. I was once one of those hooligans that would come down at the fort and mess with the pirates, as young people back then would have called us. I met with Ellie Silveria, our former commander at the time. I told him that someone came to my house and told me that I could fire a musket, and he said, if you have $5 in your pocket, you can gladly join. He asked me if I was 16. I was like, yeah, I'm 17. He goes, here you go. So that night I was helping with the cannon crew and had dinner with the militia, and I was part of the family. Kids today aren't getting taught this in school, and it's nice to read it in a textbook. It really is, but when you can come down and see it hands-on and see the living demonstrations of a tinsmith, a leather worker, an armory, of knowing the many assortments, difference of guns, colonial cooking over an open fire, you don't have that opportunity to. You read it in a textbook, but it doesn't sink in until you physically see it firsthand and personal. Kids today, they think you can go get your food in grocery stores. They didn't have grocery stores back in the 18th century. You had to raise your own crops on your property. You had to harvest your own livestock to provide for your family and for the men at arms ready to go to serve the war. History comes alive when you get to really get to see it firsthand and personal versus reading it in a textbook. Every battle that took place, from the first shot heard around the world, because everybody knows about what happened in Lexington and Concord. It's still a mystery today who fired that first shot. Was it the Brits or was it an American rebel on the green in Lexington? It's hard to put your finger on a certain battle that everybody should learn about. You know, the ride of when Washington had commanded Benedict Arnold, to go up to Fort Ticonderoga to capture the guns of Bunker Hill down to the heights in Boston Heights for the siege of Boston. You know, that there is intense. You got the Battle of Saratoga. It's a big mystery of the whole, was Benedict Arnold the right person that was who took over, who's got the recognition of today of the victor of Saratoga, or was it Horatio Gates? You know, you got that battle that people can learn more about. You got the Battle of Yorktown, the siege of Yorktown down in Virginia, closer to the end of the war. It's everything. You know, living in Fairhaven, you hear about the Battle of Fairhaven. It was more or less not a battle. It was pretty much a siege of boats off our coast. It doesn't really get taught a lot in school because the first naval engagement people think in the history books is the burning of the Gaspee down in Rhode Island. They get all that credit. But what really happened here was Captain Nathaniel Pope and Daniel Eggerty, under the cover of darkness on May 13th and 14th of 1775, rowed out at night to a sloop that was anchored off of Sconneconeck Point, was able to commandeer that sloop. Below deck, there was about 11 to 12 Royal Marines asleep. They were able to grapple alongside that vessel, commandeer it, and then took those men as first prisoners of war. Now, history books will say you're wrong, it's not true, but there is a writing here in Fairhaven that has the recapture of what Nathaniel Pope's son remembers of what his father told him many, many years ago. He was able to get that down in paper. So that's something that, you know, if you grow up in Fairhaven, it's nice to know. This is a small town with a lot of history, tons of history. Because you have the first naval engagement here, and then everybody knows of the raid of 1778 here that happened in Bedford Harbor, which was part of Dartmouth back in the day. Oh, you can check us out at FairhavenVillageMilitia.org, on our blog spot, or just look us up on Facebook, Fairhaven Village Militia. We're always looking for new members. If you have a love and passion of history, of any sort, of American history, especially the 18th century, look us up. We're a family-oriented group. We're always looking for young new members. We do a lot of living history demonstrations, and it's fine. If you want to do living history, that's great to teach, because it's nice to teach and to inform people that they don't know. I'm part of the 13th Continental out of Rehoboth. They do more of a military aspect. So you can fall in with Fairhaven, become a member with Fairhaven, and then you can come alongside me, and I'll introduce you to the 13th Continental, and you can fall in at both groups.
Right, but if I'm sitting, would that be all right? No? All right, I'll get down there.
I do. I blew up and over here.
Fix bayonets? Okay. Okay. Anybody else loaded? Okay.
Everybody can see it?
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Right.
Break to the front. Mark. Did it. I almost just got out.
What I'm working on right now is this is the beginning of one of these tin mugs. The material that I'm using, it's called tin plate. It's an iron that's been rolled out and coated with tin. Tin itself is a material that has properties very similar to lead. It's too soft to do anything with directly, so it's put on as a coating to metal to give it anti-rust properties. So everything starts out as a flat sheet, and then using the different anvils and hammers, I roll it into the shapes that I need to. What I'm working on right now is, you can see at the very top of this, the edge is rolled over and it's reinforced with a piece of wire.
Oh, hey, I called the number. I said it's a 50-pounder. You guys said, yep, it's a 50-pounder.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Yeah, you got a nice craft there.
Well, thank you.
So, this looks like steel though, isn't it?
No, it is tin plate.
Tin, yeah. 'Cause didn't they use, like the galvanized
No,
to make the mugs?
no, it was tin plate. It's iron that's been rolled very thin
Yeah,
and covered with a tin coating.
Oh,
The tin-
so that's why you get that gray look.
Yes, because the
When
tin
they start getting old, yeah.
the tin helps it to from rusting.
Right.
Although eventually it will wear and rust.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Doug Pyron. I'm the president of the 13th Continental Regiment. We're here at Fort Phoenix. We're taking part in the 250th celebration of the Revolutionary War. Basically, our unit and many of the other units here all take part. We're all volunteers. We all appreciate American history, and we like to reenact it to educate the public.
My name is Eric Travail. I'm with the 13th Continental Regiment this weekend. And I'm here at Fort Phoenix here in Fairhaven. And this is commemorate America 250, but also a year ago would have been 250 years of an attack here at Fort Phoenix by the British. So we're here to set up camp for the weekend, to talk to the public, talk to them about American history, what it means to be a soldier in the American Revolution, camp followers to tell their story, to kind of give people a little bit of a taste of what American history is like. the American Revolution, I should say. So it's just a lot that I think people don't know, because a lot of it isn't really taught very much now in history classes. It's kind of glazed over. Everything's George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Declaration of Independence, and then kind of like ends, and then that's it pretty much. So it's important to have these events, because we're showing people what life was really like as best as we can. It's not 100% accurate, but it's close. We're wearing a lot of the same garments, same clothing that they would have worn, wools, linens. A lot of it is handmade by our own hands or by somebody that we know. And then we're using a lot of the weapons that they would have used back then at this period of time. They're using weapons like the muskets and bayonets and cartridge boxes and stuff like that. So a lot of that is, it's all replica, but it's all the same stuff that that they would have used back then.
My name is Jay Franklin. I am part of the Wareham Minutemen and Militia companies, as well as the 13th Continental Regiment out of Rehoboth. I think American history is very important to me because, it's always good to reflect on history. It's always something good to learn about. And for me, the militia, it's just something that I wanted to get into. I like learning history and all that, and it's just something that I can do on the weekends. I'd always like to spread as much knowledge to everyone else so they can learn about American history.
I'm Ethan Sonnabend, and I'm here at Fort Phoenix reenacting with Lebanon Town Militia. Now, the thing is about the militia, it might be considered a motley crew, but a lot of the people here are really fantastic. We are able to make a lot of good new connections. I think it's vital that people my age, I'm 19, I've been reenacting since I'm 13, that people just come and see it and experience it. It's very vital that we not only try to properly portray history, but the connections and proper connections that we don't really see with technology nowadays, to be able to properly experience human connection. Now, I'm with a few units. One is Lebanon Town Militia, based out of Connecticut. We mainly do events around Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and sometimes Western Connecticut. Another unit I'm with is a Hessian unit, Long Groff. We are mostly building up around the area of Massachusetts and Connecticut and Rhode Island. We're trying to get more events as well as build up our presence. You might have seen other units like Knephausen. They mostly have miter caps, which are pretty expensive, but I think that it's a good experience for people that really want to connect with their German history, want to experience a real line regiment, as well as other experiences with the crown that militia may not give. But even then, even for people that may or may not be as fortunate to be able to afford too much stuff, we all have loaner gear we can give. We always pitch in to help. And if somebody is really struggling, we always seek to help, because our community is so strong. And I think that's what is vital about being a reenactor in total, as well as just general history portrayal and being able to interact with everybody as a whole.
I'm Gary Franklin. I'm a member of the Wareham Minutemen and Militia companies and the 13th Continental Regiment.
By a company called Fitzgerald.
We had a battle this morning.
Another good brand would be
this afternoon, actually.
Brand that's very good.
And what I'm doing now is I'm just cleaning my musket.
That's pretty much it.
So I'm running a brush down the barrel to clean out all of the ashes and things that are in there from it being fired.
The collectibles would be, I think, that guy.
Because that black powder that we fire out of these is very, very corrosive. And it'll make these rust, because none of these are chrome plated, because chrome plating didn't exist during the Revolutionary War. So this stuff is all polished steel, and it rusts very, very easily. So we're just gonna, I've got my bore brush attached to my ramrod, and we're just brushing the inside of the barrel out. And then I will use some hot water. I rinse it out with some hot water, and we'll put a little coating of light oil in it, and that will keep it from rusting.
My name's Skip Faulkner, and I'm with the Fairhaven Village Militia. And right here we have a display on colonial fishing. Fishing was a big thing back in the day because you can't always hunt. Sometimes it was bad weather. So we have here a piece of salted cod, and they would take the cod and they would put it in a barrel, salt it, put another piece, salt it, put another piece, and they would actually seal the barrel, and they could eat the salted cod for up to a year. So it gave them some food. What we have here is a actual replica of George Washington's fishing kit. He used to carry this everywhere. It was in a tin, just like this one, and he used to carry it everywhere. And when he was in a battle or he had something spare time, if you couldn't find George, go find a pond, and you'd find him. This is what's in the kit. It's a hook on the bottom. The line is actually catgut, and there's a bobber made out of a cork. Of course, it'd be longer than this, but this is for display. And you would have to take the fishing line and rub it in beeswax, because if not, if you get a big fish, it would break and you'd lose your dinner. These are Native American. It's called a toggle hook. Can you hold that for a minute? You see the little slot here? I don't know if you can see it, but you would tie your line to it, and you would tie your worm to it, and when the fish would bite, it would go sideways so they couldn't get it out of their mouth. And the colonists really liked these because sometimes hooks weren't available. You just take a soft tree branch and you can make the hook. We have hand lines. Of course, they'd use a bigger one, but it is said by the Native Americans that there was so much cod here in the harbor you could walk across. A little exaggeration probably, but that was that much. Can you imagine, they'd use a bigger one, can you imagine having a 30-pound cod on a hand line? My hand hurts just thinking about it. And then what we have here is we ask the kids if they know what these things are. This is a quahog, great for chowder. We also eat them out of the shell, but they're kind of chewy, so chowder's the deal. We have little necks, and these are the same family, but they're very tasty, and the people just steam them or boil them. And then we have mussels, and they would eat all of these things, and that's how they would survive.
The fort was built in 1775 when the residents of this area felt they were going to be invaded by the British shortly after the shot fired at Lexington and Concord. They called the legislative people up in Boston and said, we're concerned, now that the war seems to be starting, we need a fort to protect Bedford Harbor. Keep in mind that we were all part of Dartmouth. This was Old Dartmouth Village, which consisted of Bedford Village, Fairhaven Village, and the village in Acushnet. So a fort was constructed here in 1775. It was very crude. It's not like you see today. It was dug out earth, supplied with, on the outside with stone, granite that was quarried from this area. And they made pretty much just an area that you could fire cannons in muskets and be able to ward off any attacking British troops. So it took 2 years to build the fort. It was completed in 1777, and it was destroyed in 1778. So it only lasted 1 year before the British invaded the area. Now, why did the British invade the area? Because Bedford Village was a merchant area. It was basically had a lot of merchant ships that were pirates. They would get permission from the legislature. They would get a certificate of paper that said you could go out, you can raid a British ship, you can come back to your home port, and you can sell it in your shops. That's how you get your inventory. So the British knew this was happening. So when the war started to ramp up, in 1778, General Gage set out on a mission to destroy areas around Newport, Tiverton, and then they directed their sights here at Bedford Village, where there was a very lucrative merchant commercial area going on with these privateers or pirates. So in 1778, they landed 3,000 British troops here on 7 different transit boats. They landed in Dartmouth. They landed some in the immediate area here. They landed on Sconneck, and they started to converge on the area. They did a 3-day raid that basically burned and pillaged all of the prominent people in this area that were against the British Crown. If you were loyal to the American, what would be the American government, they would burn your home and take all of your goods. They also burned all of the stores that were there, the storekeepers, the merchants. They burned the warehouses where they were storing their goods, and they burned about 70 American ships that were in the harbor. Now remember, we didn't have the hurricane barrier, we didn't have Coggeshall Street, and we didn't have the 195 overpass, so this river was very open. Those burning ships just headed down to the north part of the river and sunk. And a lot of the dredging that's going on right now, they're pulling up anchors in the keels of all of those ships. Approximately 70 ships were lost during that raid. But it was very devastating to the area. They lost a tremendous amount of goods. It put them out of business for about 2 years. Now, if you think about it, the whaling industry started to kick up here in about 1780, 1781, at the end of the Revolutionary War. But prior to that, this was still a privateering kind of community. Right? Fast forward a little bit. This fort also saw action in the War of 1812, and it also saw the federal government take it over during the Civil War. So the room you're standing in and the fort you see today is Civil War vintage. It's been updated over the years to be what is a Civil War fort. The cannons that you see are Civil War. They were cast in 1860, and we're still firing them today. We'll be firing tonight at about 7:30. We're one of the few forts on the East Coast that fires cannons of that size. They're 24-pound seacoast cannons that would guard a seacoast, that would have in a fort that was guarding the entrance to a seaport. The first naval engagement also took place here, so we are rich in a lot of history, dating all the way from the Revolutionary War right through to slavery and prohibition. This area played a big part in all of that. The first naval engagement, real quick, is some 28 days after the shot heard around the world at Lexington and Concord. A group of 26 militiamen left Fairhaven Village in 2 boats, and they were going out to what was anchored out in the outer harbor off of Wilbur's Point, was the British vessel, the Falcon. And the Falcon was basically going after the privateers. So the privateers, remember, we didn't even have a navy. They put a couple of guns on their privateer ships. They went out, and under the cover of darkness, they were able to trick the Falcon, board them, take 13 prisoners, and bring those prisoners back to Fairhaven, where they were later traded for Americans. There was a prisoner swap. But that was actually the first naval engagement of the Revolutionary War that took place right off the shores of Fairhaven. So again, if you think about it, Lexington and Concord, Lexington was the first time that American colonists were fired on by British troops, other than the Boston Massacre. And at Concord, that was the first time at the Old North Bridge that American colonists were ordered to fire on British troops. That's the first time that it happened. You've got to remember that we were loyal to the British Crown, so for us to get orders to fire at them was basically an act of treason. 28 days later, we captured one of their frigates, the Falcon. So again, an act of treason. You've captured a British ship, you've taken prisoners, and you've insulted the Crown. So that's sort of the role the fort has played over the years. From 1775 until the fort here was decommissioned in 1876, the federal government just walked away from it. They blocked up the doors. They took 3 of the cannons, probably sold them for scrap, left 5, and the fort remained empty for about 50 years, 50. In 1928, Lady Fairhaven bought the fort for $5,000 from the federal government, and she agreed that if you mount the cannons properly, I'll give the fort to the town as a public park. And it has remained as a public park for all of that time, since 1928. So she got a pretty good deal. For $5,000, you got waterfront property with cannons and a fort. How could you go wrong?